Hello, this is Lisalee and welcome to my channel. So today's pick a card reading, we are going to be looking at what are your creative blockages and how can we overcome them. We have three piles here. Timestamps are below. Pile number 1 is the Bard's Guide to Abuses and Affronts. Pile number 2 is Love Sonnets. And pile number 3 is The Complete Plays in One Sitting. So I'm going to leave that there for a second if you want to really look at it. Otherwise, timestamps are below. Okay, for those of you that chose the Bard's Guide to Abuses and Affronts, let's get started. So we're looking at something where, like, you have gold in your pocket. You just do. There's no question. But you feel like a child in it. Sometimes you start strong. I'm seeing the path be pretty clear here. It's like the idea comes in, the path is woof, and yeah, but you'd never really get beyond. This is like thinking about it, doing something over here, but it's not. And then maybe there's the one part you finished, So this is this. And this is obviously, this isn't for everyone, but there's a way in which it's just beyond your reach. Materialized, it's just beyond your reach. Mainly because you have to be clumsy about getting to it. That's what I'm seeing here. So let me just take a look at this card as well. Yeah, so this just indicates he's got the flute. There's a practice. Yeah, there's a practice and there's a ritual to creating anything. Okay, here we go. Channel's coming in nice and strong. So there's a practice and a ritual to creating anything. That's part of the technology of making something, is to bring a holiness into the process, because it's not always possible to do it all by yourself. Sometimes you feel like a child in what you're trying to create and you need guidance. That's what this is. This is Spirit saying, I have a way to help you with this, and that is let's make this a holy process. Let's create a ritual around this exact thing that you want to produce or create, and make it holy. And and if this is your holy time, this is your time before the altar of whatever deity you work with or anything. This is your time before the altar to work with a mentor. And it's a mentor from the spirit realm. That's what it is. And it doesn't have to be. If you have one that is spirit will throw the person or spirit in your path, whatever that is. So sometimes we can't practice what we want to do, even though we know we're you can be amazing at something, the best pianist that has ever played the piano. But there's something about success that keeps you from wanting to push it beyond talent into practice and talent, because that's next level. So it's leveling up, and so we have two pages. It's a little bit stuck there. So you have a good thing to work with. You got the Midas light attribute. That means this is a golden, beautiful, but you got to do it. And that's it's always patriarchy, no, patronizing, maybe both. All right. It's always patronizing when somebody, says you just got to get to work, but this is saying you do have to get to work, but there's an emotional problem, that
needs something. And in this case, Spirit is saying come to me. Infuse your process with ritual and holiness, where the creative process in itself is given a reverence, and it invites inspiration. There's no doubt about it. It's a good way of doing it. But so find a way to practice that doesn't hurt. Woof, that came through crystal clear. Find a way to practice that doesn't hurt. And if you need to think about that, I don't know, this idea right here with the ritual that, that was channeled in, that's pretty good. But think about it and find a way to practice. It's you can pine after a relationship. Can you pine at, your Spirit's will you pine after finding a practice that isn't painful so that you can do the work? With the Rebel card, in the light attribute, we have challenges authority to affect social change, reject spiritual systems that do not serve inner needs. Beautiful. With the, I love this, with the Star card and the Knight of Pentacles. Let me take a look. This is, you are a star of a rebel, basically. There's like an award somewhere in like a celestial realm, and there's like all the singing, and it's like you are like, that's the kind of, like, you have definitely mastered the light attribute of rebel. The, like with the Magician card, like, you know, the deep like symbolism that I find is, is that it's effortless. It's got, like, it's a flow state. Like, what is the Magician? It's the flow state. What is the Magician? It's like, your body knows how to do it. You don't even have to think about it. This is you with being a rebel. And it's like, because it's you, because it's always been you. It's always been you to like question and, but this makes it very hard for you to work within structure. Yeah. So like, this is what Spirit is saying about the Knight of Pentacles. You know, it's slowing you down a little bit, because you're suspicious of every thought and every, like, you know, basically there's a need for a level of generosity. There's a need for a level of generosity. And so with the Knight, and what do I mean by that? I'm like losing the channel a little bit. Let me just grab it. Yeah, so with the, so like there's a tendency with like this what very like well-refined questioning that you have is totally appropriate. Just like naked, or else I'd like show you. I don't know why that's coming to my attention. Let me think about it. Oh yeah, like there's an there's an overexposure to criticism in your life that has you very slow to make it a grounded thing. And the reason there's like a slowness about making, you know, your project or your purpose, like what you know you're supposed to do, a grounded thing, there's like a little bit of questioning and like angry tension around grounding this that has to do with like a tendency and a habit of questioning everything and like needling everything, to the extent where like you're trying to create something and you're like, did I imagine that? And it's not this and that enough for this and that. Or, you know, like there's ways in which we should be healthy questioning our thinking in our work, always critical thinking, like it's delicious, but not making it impossible for something that is just born to grow by being like, you're too small, you know, it's kind of a thing. And so Spirit is saying, like, you know, there's a way in which we can like judge things so harshly and then judge ourselves really harshly in our process. And so that's like how being a judgmental, like, not that you are, but like we all are. We all, if we don't have that as like a baseline somewhere, like it's like something that comes up in a day. Like you can get so frustrated on the line to something, immediately I'm judged. Like this is the thing. So like, there's a slow start here because there's this frenetic energy about keeping yourself hypervigilant, which makes it really hard to focus. And that's like the effortlessness with Rebel. I don't know how the two are really tied together other than that's how it came through. So with Guardian here, wait, I want to feel this. Yeah, like there's good habits to like mastery with the Rebel, like in terms of just like knowing your mind and not, you know, compromising on things that are of importance, and like being the person to stand in the gap often. There's also kind of a way in which like you can interrupt processes that need more breathing room and without interrogating them. So like don't question or interrogate things immediately. You know, try to just give it some time between like when you let something like whoosh out, you know, and when you decide to start picking at it. There's like a quick fear, kind of a like judginess there. So like that's something to watch. With Guardian, let me take a look at this. You're very special on you. You really are. This is cool. This is like, I love this card because it often speaks to me as like the celestial garden. And I don't know why it is the celestial garden, but like in this case, like that's kind of like has its eye on you. You've discovered something that usually you have to be like these ones, these great ones. You've discovered something that the great ones already knew, and they're kind of amazed with you. You understand something about your infinite nature and the infinite nature of everything that is unlike a creature of your kind. And so there's a tension on you here. A lot of this has to do with like the way you were kind of like, I'm hearing like the word born again, and I don't mean like Christianity. I just mean like there's a way in which you can like look at like periods in your life and like make a line. I mean, we all kind of can right now, but like you make a line down the middle, and that was the old you, and then you were born again, and this is the new you. And we have that here, and we have this beautiful strength in the way that you may think that the way that you like began to like, you know, your projects and who you are like are intricately woven. You know, your purpose is what's in alignment with who you are and what you're supposed to like, and what you're meant to create, what you're designed to create. Assuming that like we have no idea, but like what you came here to create in alignment. It's like, so like your life is always going, like the strength of whatever you are working through with life will always influence what you create. And you did have a really strong beginning, you just didn't know it. And so like something about the way in which this project is coming together, or you're beginning to be able to like conceptualize it, is strong, really, really strong. And it comes from something that's fixed. You know, it's like, you know, it's a lot of times like inspiration is like it's like a water sign, you know, or an air sign. Like but this, when you add strength of character from experience to inspiration, this is when you get like a fixed kind of a resonance of something in terms of like the output being alive. That's a beautiful channel that just like swooped through. But with the Page of Cups here and the Queen of Swords, the help that you have coming in, and it's like very friendly help. There's a message coming in that it's with, I see these three is like, it's like six. This is what I'm seeing, six little. And I'm hearing like there's fairness here. It's interesting. This is a kind of a mixed message. Let me just look at it. There's such a call to be gentle with yourself. There really is. Like you're having to be in this queen of, you really have to step, part of like, what is the blockage? Well, I told you like this is working. And this is how, this is probably like, you know, it's like a coin, one head. Yeah. But, so this is the Queen of Swords, you know, in the way that you've come through strong, you have to be able to apply that strength to actually like you and your creation. And think about it as your creation, like not, you know, let's try to take it away from like, the word project is fine, but if it's a really your creation. So we want to look at what you have to step into, and what you have to step into is like ritual and ceremony around like what it is that you want to create or what you're supposed to create, your creation. You have to be gentle with yourself. This is not easy for you. The reason that you're like this and you have this special sight and understanding is because you being born again is also like you had to die, right? The old you died and passed away, and then the new you became. And so I think that this is what, you know, Spirit is saying, like, you're still gutted. And you still have to work from that place, because the trick of it is, and the trick of this particular creation, is that it's born in pain. The portal is pain. It's not, I have to get well and I have to get healed because then I can creation. This is like, no, create through that portal of pain. Like don't ask it questions and don't judge it. Just create through it. And that means being in a Queen of Swords kind of a way with yourself, to the extent that you're like, you know, waking yourself up with a cup of tea and being like, now we're going to sit down and do like whatever the thing is, the morning pages. the reason this is so hard with the page is because you're working with your own pain, because you're working through your own story. And if you don't have a good relationship with your own story, your pain is going to be too much. And so it's like you're in the phase where the pain is kind of too much and you have to make it into your own story so that you can manage it. And so it's like a very uncomfortable liminal space that requires a Queen of Swords kind of attitude with yourself that says like, you do have to sit down and do the damn thing. And that's what I'm seeing here. And so, you know, like, and that sounds pretty harsh, like, once again, because there's a lot of pain around it. It's like, I'm not, you know, thinking that there's not, I feel it. And the reason that this is a cup, because it's like, put some love on that. You know, take that like really tender space of like, you know, feeling like what you went through and what you're trying to like translate into language, like it's not pushing out the way you expected it to. It's like breach, right? And you, and like, that's an interesting image. I'm getting that a lot though, for some reason. And yeah, so like, you know, so it's like a Queen of Swords has to reach in there and like turn the baby. And then, so there's a little bit of discomfort around the fact that you're processing pain like into a creation and not like creating something of the processed pain. It's like the Wild West of creation, but this is kind of what you signed up for with this project or this creation. Yeah. So with the Passion card here, we've got, I love reading it. The frequency of passion reminds us that beneath every intense emotion lies the hidden gem of insight, balance, and calm. It assists us in finding the balance within this intensity, moving us from chaos to the calm of its core, where we can let its long-lasting wisdom fill us up. This, right? That's what this is. This is really what it means, I think, to work through the pain. You know, in a way, it's like, this is intense emotion, and you know there's a hidden gem in it. You're like, I know that it's in there, but every time I go to reach for it, I'm like, it burns me. Right here, 8 of Wands. You know, like in the 2 of Wands in reverse. I love this. This is so good. I wasn't even going to do, I haven't really been doing reversals, but it's fine. But that's what this is. You know, this is this like, you know, it's really intense emotion. So like, and you know the gem is in there, but you have to stick your hand in it and it hurts. So there's like this intensity behind like making this happen, but it's like almost like I have to do this fast. Because it like I have to rip the Band-Aid off. But then you end up being like, I don't know what direction I'm going. Like this is so much work to just, you know, deal with the fact that these are intense emotions. But Spirit's saying there's a different approach for you. Like if you're coming at something that you're trying to create, if you're trying to find that gem, you know, and it stings to the point where you cannot touch it, you're not ready, or, and like we'll talk about that, but you know, Spirit, you know, or. And like Spirit will be like, okay, then part of the creation process is the healing process too. It's just a part of it, right? So sometimes it's not ready to like be birthed, you know, and sometimes there's a way, sometimes the creation's gestation process is long and you can't cut it short because it needs it. It needs to like grow through your experience, which has to happen, you know? So like, but that's for some of you, but for others, and you know, well, that's one route. But Spirit is saying, you know, I know that like every time you try to do this, every time you attempt to do this, there's like something that makes it too hard. And that's that, you know, that the gem is there, but the intensive emotion, it's like a body reflex almost. You know, you might even be like, why am I so lazy, so tired? Like, because you really do not want to face this emotionally. And that's what the 2 of Wands in reverse. There's like a way in which like, you know, things aren't well planned out, or they're only planned out. Either things aren't well planned out or they're completely planned out, but there's can't be doing things with the planned out. You know what I mean? Like either way, you know, this is an experience of being stuck without a plan because you can't deal with it, right? Now, I'm going to pull a couple extra cards on that, but like before we go here with coherence. And so here's a block, you know, we're going to talk about that. Move this over again. So here's our block right here. This is like the intense emotion. We're going to work on it. With coherence and the 5 of Cups and the King of Cups. Let's take a look at this. One at a time. Okay, so I want to read it. The frequency of coherence supports our ability to harmonize the frequency of the heart with the frequency of the mind for an optimal ability to create the reality that we desire. So here's where we're grounding this creation. Like this is like what the goal is. we want to harmonize like what's happening, you know, in the ethereal of our minds, and we also want to bring it into contact and make matter of it on like the physical plane. And so there's a dance here, and there's a balance that needs to be found, because the two states aren't always compatible. Sometimes the like inspiration state, it's like tripping, right? Or like it's like really fast and it's like almost like a high. And that's really good. That's like when the inspiration comes in. But when we stop and like try to like make it into like put it like take something so beautiful and magnificent, like the thing that we've like grasped the essence of, if we try like stop, try to like put it down, the two states might not be compatible. And so like that, and so Spirit is saying like the goal here is to find this coherence in the practice and the ritual of the creation, and the like being the midwife of the inspiration itself. Which is beautiful. Whew, I love this channel. So with the Five of Cups and the King of Cups here, let me look at this. Let me take a look. There's so much here about, I'm seeing it all over the place, like turning experience into, and this is a superpower. Let's just be clear. You know, taking absolute tragedy, because tragedy begets tragedy. It's just the way that it works. Like this is how we do, like this is it. When we are able to stop that train, and the way that we stop that train is we take it and we force it into some kind of meaning. And if it's like really loose meaning, like it's like really hard to handle the grieving and whatnot, but we have to make meaning of it. There's a transmuting of like ultimate grief, really, and into like meaning. And so like Spirit is saying, like, you know, you may look at the past, you may like look back and be like, oh, the trauma, I can't focus. Spirit is saying you may be looking at that and really looking at these cups and really feeling the loss and the severity of what happened, and not understanding that each and every one of them, like in that horrible pain that does not get, and there's no like making it light or easy, but there's a gem here, there's a gem here, and there's a gem here. So not only does she have to like look at this, there's a way in which she's got to reach her hand down and grab the meaning out. But that meaning is priceless. You know, with the King of Cups, like that meaning, it like transforms from this state of being. You know, and this is the promise that you get. Like, you know, Spirit's saying it's not going to kill you to grieve and to find the meaning in the grief. It won't. You can handle it. But when you emerge, you're going to be the King of Cups, and you're going to have mastery over your emotions. And in this way, you're going to be able to help, like there's translating this message, these gems, like, you know, these are also keys for people. You know, it's ways for them to open the door and let themselves out. Wow. And so we have a block here, which is interesting. And I need a sip of, all right, back to the drawing board. Okay. So we have the High Priestess, the Six of Cups, and the Tower. Let me feel this. Oh, okay. Sorry, like what came through is, you know, I'm like looking at the bottom of the deck energies here, and we've got such good ones. You know, like just to liven everything a little bit, we have the Ten of Pentacles, which tells me that like money, right? Like whatever, like this incredible like emotional labor is. And like, let's be very clear about what we're talking about when we're talking about art. Art is taking experience and transmuting it into expression. And that is exactly what emotional labor, that is like the pinnacle, like that is pinnacle of what emotional labor is. And it produces like expression, right? I don't know why that came through the way it did, but with the Tower and the Six of Cups here and the High Priestess, relationships have to fundamentally shift for you. And the bottom of the deck energies, you know, I'm seeing the Empress here, like there's creativity. So you're perfectly fertile with creativity. There's alchemy, so you're completely fine in terms of like, being able to take a concept and make your transmuting capabilities are beautiful. And you got the Knight of Swords, which means like you're not afraid to take action. Like this isn't like, like I can't handle it. It's not really like that. You got the 10 of Coins, and this is this beautiful energy of like the money is in the bank in terms of the Midas. It's a good idea. But the past is kind of a thing right now. And so when we look at, but the past also, informed like, this grief informs this superpower right here. It is. And that's sort of like, that's a transmuting right there. So with the, I got to look at this because this is really interesting. This is a hard one right here. There's this is really basically saying like there's such a need to like look at relationships and rethink everything. Like, because you can't create, like, it's weird. It's like Spirit is saying it's the tower around this is like creating a void for you. With the High Priestess, like I'm seeing like not having a language, not having it be heard or seen. I'm seeing this happening like in the dark. And Spirit is saying like, we have to do something about this. This is the Six of Cups. This is the soulmate card, and I see this person reaching for this person and this person reaching for, that's what I'm seeing right here. And so this is where Spirit is saying like, I want to give you something, but the way that you think about relationships makes this hand not reach that hand. And it keeps you kind of in this space where everything is created in the dark. And so it's not getting that feedback that like, you don't want feedback from people about your stuff like until it's kind of ready for feedback, but you're not getting like a reward system from the effort. And sometimes the reward system, you have to be brave and have courage to like align with something that doesn't reward you right away. And you're called to do that with this project because it's a birthing kind of a thing. Like you're creating something that's beautiful and has a lot of power to it. But relationships need to be, you have to rethink relationships because maybe relationships have too much power in your life. Maybe relationships take too much time. Maybe relationships take all the time in your head and all the time in your heart. And maybe relationships are like they are a muse and you're inspired by them. But there's something cut off. These two aren't together. And there's like a warning here that says like, we need to fix this. These people need to come together. So you need something in the way of feedback. And Spirit is saying like, this is part of the process and we got to look at that. So I'm going to look at the blocks, this block and this block, because this is going to get crazy long and I don't want to do that. But I want to look at the blocks real fast and just see like what you can bring to these blocks in order to overcome them. And I'm going to start with these. So let's just get a card for, I want to see what this, let's see this, the direction. This is about direction and opportunity right here. Under passion, it's also about intense emotions, like informing a process and whether or not like you can even do a thing that's overwhelming. Third eye chakra. Let's read it. The frequency of the third eye chakra, the indigo flower of life, supports our intuition and our inner knowing, our imagination and our psychic powers. Why do I love that so much? With the bottom of the deck energy being emergence. The frequency of emergence invites us to approach our reality with a childlike attitude of innocence and wonderment, and to watch and celebrate the beauty that unfolds from that place. So there's this beautiful thing in which like Spirit is saying so clear to, like, you have to, when I see trust your intuition, I also hear the word faith, right? And so there's this way in which like Spirit is saying, I want you to put your faith in yourself. That's scary when you don't trust yourself because you've had horrible things happen and you don't trust your abilities because no one's given you, any good feedback about it. Maybe you're asking the wrong people, or like you don't have the opportunity, to ask the right people. The Spirit is saying like, I want you to move this, like in terms of feedback for you, there's two things that I'm seeing very clearly. Feedback, move it into like that ritual, that holy time, that third eye chakra, like infusing the work with the feedback of your guides, your ancestors, like, the kind of relationship that you have begun to, and even if you're just beginning to sort of like work with, your people, there's still a way in which Spirit is saying, like, you know, especially if it's really painful, go and holding hands with somebody. You don't have to do it by yourself. You don't have to cry. You know, you don't have to say, you can say, like, you can turn to your guide and say, like, I have to cry my way through this page, or I have to cry my way through this painting, or I have to cry my way through this song, and I keep stopping, like, after every, like, third, whatever it is, like, please take my hand, let's pull me through this. That's so beautiful. I'm gonna cry. But whoa, that channel came through with, like, the sweetest, most pure, like, I teared up, like, immediately. So this is part of, like, emerging. You know, you don't have to, like, push yourself into being, and you don't have to push, because your life goes first, your creation follows, because that's how you inform the creation. Yeah, you can't, like, push through, like, you know, you have to sort of allow for there to be, like, a level of faith in your ability, if not to do a thing, to reach for the kind of help that you need to pull you through. Like, you know what will work, or you're gonna know what will work in that moment when you sit down and you apply yourself and you give that holy space to the creation process. With coherence over here, in terms of, like, how do we harmonize and, like, ground the thing and make it real. I'm gonna get one of these, another one of these. Let's see what we have here. Sacral chakra. This is about empowerment. And your bottom of the deck is the divine, oh my God, could I be happier? The divine feminine. I love this energy. So this is not about forcing anything. Let me read this. The frequency of divine feminine supports our receptive, nurturing, and soft side, allowing it to express itself openly and helping us to connect to our intrinsic understanding of our connection to all of creation. You know, when we talk about having to sit, like, with the Page of Pentacles here, when we talk about having to, like, sit down and do a thing, and over here it's like, how can we make it not painful? Like, how can we make this fun again? Or how can, you know, like, where can we infuse it with that? Like, how can we make it easy for you to come to the practice of, like, and the ritual of this creation process right here? So, you know, this is your receptive, nurturing, soft side. So it's not like strive, agency. It's more like having the courage to work with an energy that is in, you know, that is in its infancy and it's not perfect yet. That's why you don't yell at it, and like, that's why you're not applying a question or interrogating it. Like, you're allowing something that is, you know, something to grow within your processing, you know, and, like, be produced as a result of what you were willing to, like, walk yourself through, the, you know, in order to, like, take it, whatever you have, the gem, and, like, make it into a thing. And so, that's a beautiful bottom of the deck energy there. I love that. And so, like, there's a patience involved, you know, with this process of, like, integrating the inspiration with the, like, with the experience, in order to inform the creation. Like, such a cool little, that's like a trinity. That was neat. But with the sacral chakra here, you know, this is about, there's a need to empower you. There's a need for you to, like, spirit, I hear, like, this, like, it's almost like the thundering, like, horn. Like, that's how, like, loud this is. Like, you need to find your power, and you need to get a hold of it. And that's not easy to do when, like, you're like, oh, thank you for, like, telling me what I already know. Great. Perfect. Just gonna grab that, just gonna lasso that power down. Like, that's not really, like, this is more about this is about decisions. Let me take some, I'm gonna take a minute with this and get some cards on that. Like, what can empower you? Because, you know, this is the grieving, you know, like mining for the gem. The grieving for the gem is, like, a weird thing. It's like a processing and a purging, because in order to, like, make a note and then, like, make a connection and then make a product, you're using the experience, and if the experience burns every time you go to touch it, it's, you know. And so that might be really disempowering. And so, like, let's take a look and see what Spirit has to say about that. Let me just get this one too. It's that that child, and there's the decisions. It's funny. With the King of Cups on the bottom, like this is what's created of this process that we're looking at here with the empowering. It's Spirit is saying, why the decision? Why the decision? Okay, because the very act of speaking like with conviction about something that you have like come to a conclusion about. If I don't do this project, I'm gonna be miserable, like something like that, where you like I'm gonna do the thing because I cannot not do the thing. It's more painful to not do the thing than it is to do the thing. When Spirit is saying, like, when you make a judgment and when you have conviction and you have a decision, no matter what the heck it is, you can apply this to anything. It's empowering yourself. It's like you're giving yourself that first little drop of power by saying, I have decided this. You're telling yourself, I have a drop of power. It's not crazy. You know what I mean? Like, this is like, to make a decision is to empower yourself. And to make your decisions about like, how do you want to apply, or make a practice or a ritual to like infuse like the process so that you can, so that you have like whatever you need. Because I can't, it's going to be very different. It's going to be very individualistic. It's going to be, each person has their own way of singing, and each person has their own way of making their creation process, like, something that they're able to like practice and get to every day. And, with the Judgment card, there's a decision that has to be made related to like what you want. That's the first drop of empowering you. So even if you're like, oh, sacral, great, and power, I need power, great. I'm so happy that you're telling me that. Spirit is saying, because you might, with the Page of Wands, like that's that feeling of like, I don't, like where you're, there's not a confidence in your inspiration, right? So here Spirit is saying, like, even though there's not a maybe there's not a confidence in your inspiration, or there's like a ton of confidence in your inspiration, but maybe not so much confidence in yourself, whatever like what Spirit is, because this is a good idea. Again, like there's all the good stuff, but in order to come to this place of power, like that, you have to make a decision, and that decision will empower you, and that power will be built from that. It'll accumulate. So, Spirit is saying, like, that is the act of will that we are involved with here. And the alchemy of creating this creation is like, you need an active will, and you need an active will to like allow yourself to be in the Page of Wands, like not confident with the inspiration. Be there, because you show up and dance anyway, and then you find out like it's not that bad, like this is good for me, like whatever it ends up being, like it makes me feel alive because it's in alignment and I want to feel alive. This is great. Like even if it just ends up, Spirit is saying, just making that decision to let this live, even if it's not confident, is empowering its ability to grow. And so like that's kind of like the practical thing that needs to be done here. So before I let this get way too long, I'm just going to end it there. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to get a sentence from, let's get a couple sentences from Spirit, like in terms of advice for you, a little bit more advice about this. Yeah, slow and steady wins the race. Like there isn't really a race, because who's dictating that there's a race? Money, maybe, right? And to that, be here now. So like, you don't want to get ahead of yourself and be like, am I going to be able, okay, am I going to do this? Am I going to be able to do that? Like how, Spirit is saying slow and steady. You don't have to be frantic about getting there immediately, because you need to be in the present to create. And you can't be like thinking about how it is or isn't going to work out. Like you do have to plan. You can't, obviously we all have to eat, but slow and steady means that you can do it an hour a day. It's like, it's a decision. That's really coming through very clear for me. Be loyal to what you love. Like think about this creation as something that you want to nurture and see grow. See this creation as something you do not want to neglect, any more than you would neglect like any of your pets, or any of the things that you love, like family members, like when you neglect it, it dies. And so Spirit is saying like, I want you to nurture your inspiration the way you would take care of a pet that you love, and not like something that you get mad at all the time. So, so that's kind of, there's an advice here to take a softer approach, and, really pay attention to how you speak to yourself, because it seems like that's, you know, where we have like this need for empowerment, and where we have this need to sort of like reach out, and connect. I want to get, actually, you know what, I'm going to let it get ridiculously long, because I want to get something related to the tower and the connections here. And I know people probably were already waiting. So let's get like a couple of these and I'll see what exactly what Spirit wants to say about that. Because that was like almost got away from me. Let's go over here. So Spirit was like, oh, no, you don't. Let it be long. Oh my God, this is going to be crazy long. Love who you are. Believe in your dream. Oh, these are all. Okay, one more thing. I need more than that. It's okay to go after what you want. I just might want you to. Yeah, and this is a person. So it's celebrate the little things in everyday life. So like, it's almost like Spirit is saying, like, you know, how do we forge these connections? Like, how do we restructure the way we make connections so that the connections, like click and like, or have like, what is the word I'm looking for? Sustainable, right? So with the rethinking, you know, how to like make these connections that are going to help with the creative process, Spirit's saying like, you're the beacon. You know, when you are in alignment, you're the beacon for your people. Your vibration calls to them. They, you know, and like, and when they're in alignment, they're sort of moving kind of towards you in a way. So like, there's this way in which Spirit is saying, like, you know, step one, fall in love with yourself. And there's a lot of, like, that sounds trite, but there's a lot of really good ways to do that. Fall in love with yourself, because as soon as you are like really like in that place of like embodying yourself, which is really loving who you are, that's like a vibrational pull. That's a magnetism that like your people are going to hear. That's going to be like a siren song almost, like, you know, in a healthy way. When we have believe in your dreams, Spirit is saying, believe in the compass that I provided within you, to lead you to the places where your dreams can prosper. And that's like community where your dreams can be nurtured. So like, you know, by believing in your dreams, like, and loving, like, so you love yourself. That's like a magnetic pull. And then you believe in your dreams. So you do things, you know, you go to places for like inspiration. Like, you know, they're artists' dates. Like, what is that book? Morning Pages. Somebody knows what this is. There's a book. And I can see it. But love who you are and believe in your dreams. I mean, like, love yourself enough to, this is a cool thing, you know, to really like, what is this experience? You know, what is this experience of allowing these dreams to affect you? To be made, to like start to become real, right? To give, like, to feed that life into it, because it's okay to go after what you want. It might just want you too. What I'm seeing here with she's got the fishing rod and this person. Yeah, I'm seeing something that shows me that like the road to like what you're supposed to be doing is like paved by your like ambition towards your desire, and that's the road where you're going to find the person who cares about you. Right there on that road. So it's like, so Spirit is saying, like, you get on that right road, and not just person who cares about you, but people who care. That came out really weird. People who care about you. You know, that's where you're going to find your tribe. It's like on the road you're supposed to be on, and like in the vibration that like is the call, you know, and believing in your dreams that gets you to that road in the first place. So like, that's kind of the recipe there. Wow, this is going to be really long, but that's okay. Let it be. All right. I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you guys again soon. Group number 2, for those of you that chose this, love sonnets. Let's go ahead and start your reading. I'm going to speed up the shuffle. Okay, group number 2, let's take a look and see what we got here. So with the magical child and the chariot, it's like this inspiration's been with you for a super long time. And it, you know, probably went through cycles. You know, but the core of it was born in like the purest place imaginable. And so like, that's kind of what's driving this forward. But with the chariot, you have like often, you know, I think the traditional deck, you know, these forces are like pulling in separate directions. And so it's very hard to sort of like manage, you know, the pacing at least. And this has been such a process. So let's take a look and see what this is all about. I'm going to read the light attribute here. Seeing the potential for sacred beauty in all things, the belief that everything is possible. So like from that, you know, that's that place where you're not questioning everything that you think of in the way of like inspiration. And so that's kind of like driving this forward. But with the beggar and the tower in reverse, let me just look at this. So this is, you know, this is the light attribute of beggar is like you've been like extraordinarily taxed. Like this is like poverty that like really stops you in your tracks, makes it really hard for, it's like either you grew up with it or you've like had these bouts. This is having to just focus on survival. And when you're just focusing on survival, like everything falls away. And so this is like picking up your head and being like, I had to just like focus on survival and everything has fallen away. So like now what am I supposed to do? Right? Like that's kind of the feeling of this like combination here. So part of the blocks is just, you know, grappling with what it means to have lost time to this, or it just like what it meant to like be survival at this point, right? But with the King of Cups here and the Avenger, let me just take a look at this. Yeah, this is really beautiful. You know, from this deep, beautiful place, like you have this incredible depth of love, and your creativity does come from your understanding of the heart. And with the Avenger, the desire to balance the scales of justice, righteousness on behalf of society or oneself, you see so clearly from this position. And so whatever it is that you are trying to create, or whatever, like the creativity that you're trying to work with, you are informed by this like depth of experience, and this understanding of the heart of those experiences. And what has sort of been a little bit of a challenge is kind of like finding this balance where you understand how to use your inspiration and your gifts and sort of channel your creativity in a way that it doesn't sort of like diffuse, is kind of what I'm seeing. With universal love, I'm going to read it. The frequency of universal love activates the connection we feel to each other, to our planet, and to the whole of existence itself. So with this card, this is interesting. With the Hermit and the Knight of Swords, this is interesting to me, actually. So like what I'm seeing here is like this incredible, beautiful child that like it just is born with like I want to say it's like the Holy Grail or something. It's like this beautiful message for the world that's like encased in this very magical, beautiful child. And that child has to be the bearer of this beautiful message and bring it to life. And it's a really important thing. So I'm seeing the importance of all this, but what has been in opposition, the odds that have been against you, and the way in which you have to learn how to properly like work with your desire to make things fair. And how that affects like your depth and your like mode of seeing the whole world. And so all of this like culminates in this universal, like this universal love is born of this process for you. Love, it's like the last, like, you know, might even be like the last vestige of like true love that you have for yourself, sort of stuck in this place. And it seems like it's beyond, like behind this experience. Like this is the experience that's the wall between like beautiful inspiration that knows no bounds and like limitations that will never give way. That's and you're over here trying to, you know, work out like the anger from the injustice over here, but also like that you have this understanding of universal love. And so first thing Spirit wants to say to you is this wall is bullshit. Not that it is, like this was a horrible experience, but this is not a wall that separates you from what you remember as that magical child whose inspiration knew no bounds, who had joy in doing the inspiration, right? So I want to pull just like a couple cards. I want to look, you know, with the King of Cups on the bottom of this deck. I want to take a look at this wall. I just want to get a couple cards on that. Not that it's like, I'm not like making it irrelevant, but because it's not, it's really important. Yeah, let's just get a little bit more. There we go. Okay. Wow. Yeah, sometimes we name our happiness. Sometimes we name like what we're like, this is going to satisfy me. This is going to be like where I feel safe with love and held and connected and tribe and purpose, position, place, right? You know, this is all of that. But over here, when we look at the way this came out, yeah, whatever this experience of deprivation was, where you just had only to survive, and it took so much. You know, the first thing we have to do is like look at what it did. You know, like, so you can't really like to get here. Like, the weird thing is like you need the technology of forgiveness. You need to forgive the experience in order to access that which is like actually like braided into it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but you know, first we've got to name it, and then once we name it, we can turn it around and we can sort of like write the flow, which is basically what I'm saying is forgive this. And forgiveness is a technology of like release. It's not about the other person. We know that, but like people have bad language for describing it. But what did you lost your voice and your like sense of your own self as like being a reliable narrator and a reliable compass for you. You know, this really made relationships suffer to a degree where like what was not working had a lot to do with like your information. You know, I'm being shown a kid who like who only knows how to like shake juice, right? And then like, yeah, like someone hands this kid a can of soda and they just shake it. So, and then everybody's like, how could you, you know, when you open the soda and it explodes. Like, so there's this experience of this child that, you know, their relationship suffered from their loss of that, you know, where they would, like, it's just like where they were looked at like they did it on purpose. Like, why are you shaking the soda? Because I thought it was juice. You know what I mean? Like, it's a weird little thing that I'm seeing there. But with temperance here, like there's, you know, it's knowledge that there was like such a lack of balance where you had to like work with, you know, having that loss and like work with like how that affected relationships and what it meant to feel, unmoored. It's like unrooted, really. And so Spirit is saying, like, with this, you know, we want to turn it around, you know. So it's like Spirit is saying, like, look at yourself, and like, where are we now with your voice? Because we're gonna just rename this, and we're gonna take the superpowers that come out of it and rename it because we want to like release the block related to your creative flow here. So, because this is your inspiration. So Spirit is saying, you know, first thing we want to do is we want to look at what it means for you to reclaim your voice. It's not easy. It takes a little bit of like thinking and effort, but you reclaim your voice by giving it yourself the voice, like a little bit at a time. You know, like your natural voice, it's like it wants to be heard. It's like, have you ever had one of them saying like a dream? Have you ever had a dream where you're trying to like scream for help, but the only thing you can do is whisper? Like, this is what I'm being shown. But Spirit is saying, like, you know, that lost voice or that sense of a lost voice, you know, unlike what you believe that like the voice is lost and it's only going to get worse if I try to like, you know, scream. Spirit is saying like, no, like the more you give the lost voice like a sound, you know, little bits, you know, write a little thing, you know, paint a little thing, you know, whatever it is towards like moving yourself towards this inspiration, because it's really, you're just like finding your way home with this. Spirit is saying like, and that's because that's your voice is over here, you know. It's like you have your voice with you to an extent, but there's a healing that needs to happen with this. So Spirit is, in order for it not to be painful, for that inspiration to flow, like it's interesting. But so Spirit is basically saying like, in order to like get your voice, you have to give it. You have to give it to anything, almost, you know, a song. So Spirit is saying like, the first thing to do, the way to find your voice is to start saying things. And that's takes practice, and it also takes like not condemning yourself or even like looking at what the sounds are, because I'm being shown this ribbon and I'm thinking about the pianos that play themselves. So she's like making this, you know, her loss of voice the entire time. She's making this ribbon that like no one knows what she has to share because she didn't have her voice, and she's making this ribbon. And so the Spirit is saying like by using your voice, you're just like slowly putting that ribbon around that spool, so that its song can play seamlessly on its own without any effort. Like, there's a beauty about what it would mean to find your voice. At this point, it's not starting from the beginning. It's effortless. Like, once you start using it, you know, and you have the courage to like stick with what it means to hear yourself, to reflect on it, you know, to have that relationship with your creation. You want to spend time with your creative. You want to spend time with this, because there's a song here, you know, and it's very powerful for everyone. So Spirit is saying like that's the first thing you do, is you give yourself the voice that you lost. The second thing here with the Three of Cups, this is, I don't trust myself and I don't trust anybody else, because this wasn't like a workable model of interaction for me when I wasn't given like the right information on like, you know, how to properly hold a can of soda, you know what I mean? Or like whatever it was, and it like shamed me for life, or, you know, like that's just one little thing that I see, but it's an example. But like that can, it's socially, having things go wrong socially because there was no map and you were given to some, you know, it's like this really interesting thing. And so how do you trust yourself and trust the world after experience like this? How do you find that healing and that balance around interacting and getting your needs met? That's like kind of the main thing. So much of this is about survival. But see, the thing is like the prize over here, all suffering sucks, right? But we all do it. And I always say, you know, people hurt as much as they can. As much as their capacity for pain is, that's how much they get hurt. Like the little kid, like he scratches his knee, you know, it's the end of the world. When you're 10, you're desensitized, it's nothing, you brush it off. But that's because your pain tolerance has, you know, expanded. So we are as pain, we like experience as much pain as we can. That's every single person. It's like a weird way in which like the scales almost balance. But you know, what Spirit is showing me is like, you know, the prize at, you know, on the other side of like what this creation like has infused with it is this knowledge of universal love, which is like basically like the most powerful thing in the world, actually. And so, you know, what does it mean for you to like begin to regain trust? I don't know. I'm gonna pull some cards. I don't know. You know, that's an interesting one because it's got me stopped in my tracks. And I'm gonna pull from this deck right here. We're gonna see what this is, because I'm not really sure what it means. Like, what would it mean, Spirit? What does it mean to trust ourselves and trust the world around us? The evidence-based approach isn't working out, so we need a better formula. I love that so far. Okay. And this one. Oh my gosh, don't you just love things so much, right? So bottom of the deck energy, we've got play. Let's like, so there's a need to not take the evidence-based approach of like, if I look at my life and I look at the world, like I can see very clearly, like, why would I trust the world? And I have made enough mistakes. I don't trust myself and you know, whatever. Spirit says like, let's go out and play. We're gonna come back to this. We obviously have to deal with it, but we need to take this time to reconnect with our inner like child and reconnect with that part of ourselves that like can have vision, can imagine, because that's much more important than we realize, to like connect with like the world around us and nature and things that we can be in relationship to that are alive, and to be lighthearted, like to, you know, this is fun, like you find the fun, right? Easier said than done. I know that. We've got loss over here. But with stories and connections and nurture and key, like this is a beautiful answer that we have here. So how do you trust yourself? Oh my God. How do you trust yourself and how do you trust the world around you? So the first thing we have to look at is like, what are dominating stories? Dominating stories are the stories that rule, like they're the legislative stories. And so, wow, I don't like, this is an interesting channel that's coming through. I gotta see if I can like, it's a little bit wobbly. Gotta see if I can kind of catch it right. But you know, insofar as writing, you know, how we connect with others, you know, and writing relationships, a lot of it has to do with the stories we tell about ourselves in relationship to others and the story we tell about the relationships that we had and the stories we tell about the relationships that we want. And so Spirit is saying the first thing I want you to do is understand that, like, in the same way that, like, shaking the soda, like, you know, you only knew that you thought it was juice. You didn't know you shouldn't shake the soda bottle, and it wasn't your fault that it exploded everywhere and everybody thought you did it on purpose. Like, I'm really seeing this as a very, like, good example. With the stories here, like, Spirit is saying, like, in the same way you didn't know that the soda explodes, these stories aren't any more correct than the exploding story. You know, it's not your fault that your stories didn't tell you that you can't shake a soda. Like, it's still not right. You know what I mean? So we want to change the stories that we tell about ourselves in relationship to others. Not that we can't trust our own, like, narration or our own perspective of things, but because something about that story is making us be afraid of other people, which is not our natural way of being. And be afraid of, like, you know, what it means to influence and interact. There's a lot of fear socially here. So it's like, you know, first thing we want to do is, like, find a better story about that incident with the orange juice and the soda. And instead of the story going, no one believed me that I didn't know that it wasn't juice, and everyone treated me terribly, and I was never looked at again. I don't know if this is, like, funny, like, the way this is coming true. So, like, forgive me if I'm, like, someone might be crying. Like, forgive me if I'm, like, laughing a little bit. The way this channel is coming through, the Spirit is saying, like, make it funny. Make it be that hilarious story that you, like, tell, like, your friends when you're all, like, a little tipsy and you're all kind of, like, going through, like, you know, what it is that you've done and how, and, like, bring that into the fore. And, like, that is a hilarious story about, like, seeing the world in a way that other people didn't see it, and having to, like, weather, you know, the knowledge of the truth when others couldn't conceive. Like, there's this cool thing about that. So there's, like, so Spirit's saying, like, I want you to change these stories. Like, go through every one of these stories and rewrite them so that you're the hero at the end. Or that it's funny, like, and that it doesn't hurt, like, you know, not that horrible things can be made funny, but transmute, you know, and, like, work with these stories so that you, like, are making meaning of it, where you're not in the story, like, telling yourself that you can't go out and, like, hang out with people because you don't like anyone and nothing works. That's kind of, you know, so, like, it's just, like, it's a way in which we sort of want to re-narrate a little bit. And with the connections here and nurture, connections do need care, and we don't know how to do that often when we don't have places that we're forced to be together. Let me take a sip of water. A lot of us don't know how to nurture connections outside of, like, you know, things that you're, like, work, school, churches, whatever, anything you're forced to go to, like, where you have to interact with people. And so Spirit is saying, you know, when you change that story about, you know, how people perceive you or how you perceive yourself being perceived, also change the story about how connections are nurtured, because they're not nurtured by, you know, coercion right now necessarily. That was how you, like, you had to nurture because you had to, like, work with the space and the time, but now we're doing it, like, a different. So we're going to change the story about how we connect with others and how we nurture those connections. And the key to, like, unlocking healing around this and, like, bringing in, like, these relationships, this is so beautiful, is reconnecting with that inner child and telling that inner child the new story, and also telling the inner child that now we don't have to nurture connections through being stuck in places, you know, where people don't perceive us right or something like that, but that we get to make up our own way of nurturing connections, like, in any way that we think, like, I don't know, I don't really know the way to do it, so I guess I should pull a card on that. But let me get this card. Yeah, there's a key here around, like, retelling, taking the stories and telling them differently, and also being creative with how we nurture new relationships, and not trying to, like, expect things to happen in a way that would make it easier than that. This transition, we're in this transitional time right now. We all know it. And I'm going to read it. The frequency of transition supports our deep understanding of the ever-changing nature of existence in our lives so that we can learn to let go, surrender to the process, and allow transition to occur with ease and grace. So basically what I'm seeing here, like, you know, we're in this transition of learning how to like nurture connections in like a whole new world. Cosmic flower, here we go. The frequency of cosmic flower activates our remembrance of the place we call home, the core from which we pour our magnificence out into the world. So we are learning new ways to connect, and we're learning new ways to nurture those connections. And there's a key, you know, in this process of connecting with that inner child and telling them the stories that we now know about how you're a hero now, you know, that saved yourself every single time, and how like you don't have to connect in, you know, in the way that you used to, because that's, now we get this whole new opportunity to learn how to nurture and connect and create. And the key to all this healing is being able to swing back around and inform yourself that the story is different. It is okay now to come out and play. Wow, that was a lot. That went on for a long time. But this is going to be a long reading. Oh my goodness, we're fine. So with, that was like really beautiful, I thought. I really like love like what Spirit just said right there. So that's about connection. We got a really good answer from, you know, this healing around connection. You know, we are on this like transition right now. And with Temperance, like, you know, so this is about like finding this balance and healing, and, you know, really like there's a moment of like, well, you know, I have this really big block in my creativity and I don't know how, you know, my voice. So Spirit's saying like, we do actually have to attend to that. You know, we do have to look at the fact that like you lost your voice and now you find it by like learning how to use it, by like spitting it out. You know, we look at and that ribbon, we're learning how to like make that song, you know, and then the connections that are going to like inform our creative process that, you know, that there's a whole bunch of reasons why they're important. We just went over it. Spirit says like, you know, this needs to be looked at. We need to just start to like look at these things, and there needs to be like a level of healing that we bring to this situation, because that level of healing, that forgiving the situation itself, changing the story so that it means that it did no harm to you, so it's like easier to forgive. Like that's forgiving that situation and like telling this child like it's okay to come out and play now. So this is the answer here, you know, with the universal love and the Hermit and the Knight of Swords. Like you do know, you have this knowledge, you did this, you know, in many ways. Like you have amassed this knowledge. It's informing the project or the creation, and it came from your soul, like, you know, gestated long enough. Like, you know, you're making this connection back with the source of your inspiration over here. And now that's like even more like adding to the impetus for you to take action on letting this thing come forth and like letting this thing ground, taking those steps, start saying your voice, like hearing your voice. With the sacral chakra and power here, we've got the Justice card. We've got the Knight of Coins. We have the Tower in reverse, and we have the Ten of Wands. That's interesting. Let me look at this. You know, there's this thing right here that cannot be ignored. You know, there's the justice delayed is justice denied. That's this Ten of Wands in this Tower in reverse. You know, this is like an internal collapse, and it's an internal collapse from having to hold something really heavy. You know, there's a Ten of Wands. That stuff is, you know, having to hold it, and you can't. And so Spirit is saying, like, there's this need, you know, there's this way in which, like, you trying to get to this place where, you know, you are in your power. I'm going to read this sacral chakra right here. Actually, pick it up. The frequency of the sacral chakra, the orange flower of life, supports our ability to flow with our desires and stimulates our creative power to manifest success and abundance in our lives. You know, there's this injustice around pacing, you know, that I'm seeing here. And it's like, you know, I was supposed to, like, what, you know, like this took years. This took my years. Like, I don't know. That's what I'm hearing. And so there's this desire for justice, you know, because of how this has affected like the pacing. And it's almost like a burden, like that is, it's part of the story that says like, I am disempowered, I am disempowered, I'm disempowered. It's like, wait, what do you mean? Like, is that blaming the victim? And I'm like, no. And let me just find out like a Spirit, because I'm like, Spirit saying like, no, this is empowering. You know, this is this is where that slow start is a part of like a propulsion system, or, you know, this is where we look at the time loss and we actually say like, wait a minute, I'm going back for the gems that I got because I went through that time, and I like have this, you know, depth of information and this depth of experience to work with in terms of like what will infuse my creation, this universal love. It's like pulls everything in, and it kind of cleanses it with like this technology of forgiveness. And then the story isn't, we're not going to make it. We're not going to have enough. We're not going to be able to like make it, push it through. Now the story is like, yeah, I lost time, but I found a lot in that lost time. And that way there's not the burden of the loss, like that, you know, caused this internal collapse at a certain point. And that's like the walking around in a despair that says, I'm never going to have the power to make manifest the things that I understand that I've lived. I'm not going to have a way to like create and have like that witness, you know what I mean? And so that's this feeling, but Spirit is saying like, no, like we're working through that. And like the answer is, you know, to bring this creation forth, to have the confidence to do that, we're going to have to lose the story about how the slow start ruined our lives. And we're going to have to change that into a story where the slow start made us re-examine everything and like, you know, grow through mountains of glass. And now we are able to see with all of our limbs or something like that. You know, like there's a way in which the journey that you took gave you these things. And so it's like, gather those things that this journey took, and maybe you have to find them. Maybe it's not immediately obvious, like, because not because you need to like invalidate anything, but because you want to tell yourself a new story about how you are powerful, and you're not going to believe yourself unless you really mean it. And so that says like, you know, that story about how there's no like ability to really rise up from this, that's no longer true. There's a universal love, a piece of wisdom that I have that is infused with, you know, the inspiration I was born with, that I am like forging this like relationship back around to, so that I can take this and take action on it and like be in my power when I step into this creative process. You know, we have the card loss here, and I'm looking at this beautiful moth, and I'm looking at this figure of a woman. And what I'm seeing is like, not just like lost, but the experience of lost and found. And like, what do I mean by that? The experience of lost and found is, because there's, I don't, like, I'm being shown like reels of like animals being rescued. And there's this moment when like the dog or the kitten or the cat is rescued. And there's this look, you know, this like this beauty and like what it means for them. And that there's a beautiful moment of that connection there. And so Spirit is saying like, you know, this isn't really about other people, because a long time ago, you like abandoned this one right here, this dream. And this is this loss, you know, like, you know, I have this feeling, I'm always feeling lost. This is because he's sitting in here in the dark, or they are sitting here in the dark. But Spirit is saying like, you know, there's life found here, and there's being found here. And so there's this coming back to yourself, and the part of you that doesn't believe that you can ever do anything, that like doesn't understand, like this is like this universal love, this understanding is gathered from all of this and the process of this technology of forgiveness, which is like making the offense harmless by way of overcoming it. And it's weird advice, because I know it seems a little bit like ableist, because it's not like not everybody can, but there's like a working with and having a relationship to the loss and what you find there. That's kind of what I'm talking about, because it's not leaving parts of you, you know, and it's not ignoring any pain, and it's not ignoring any loss, and it's working with the magical ways that the new way of doing things provides, because you're not going to do things in any other way. And so this is like, you know, finding something really precious and being found by something that you thought was lost to you. And that's your, you know, it's like your higher self. And this is this moment, and this is this experience, and, you know, working with that. All right, so let's come over here. I'm going to try to like speed up a little bit. with the Nine of Wands, the Five of Coins, the Sun, and the Ten of Cups. You know, like, here's what I see. You know, when we change the story about like what the loss took from us and start to look at the story as like what the loss gave us, it's just a shift. This is kind of this thing of like, you know, this is the Nine of Wands, and so this is like the Ten of Wands, and so this is like the worry that this is going to happen again. This is the worry that this will never be lighter. You know, it's not only that you're carrying like a breaking point level of weight in some ways related to this powerlessness, but there's also this Nine of Wands here that says you're worried about this. Like, is this going to make it so that I can't succeed? And I don't know if I'm going to be able to succeed because this is a really intense burden that takes all my creative energy. And so Spirit is saying, like, you know, we're just going to change. We have to change the story to what the trauma gave you. And it's weird, right? It's like making meaning out of something that's like really horrendous. And how do you even do that? And how do you like work with the hypervigilance? This is Nine of Wands. You know, how do you work with the deprivation and the feelings of alienation? How do you work with like, you know, having to carry the knowledge of like what this, there's a lot. But Spirit is saying you work with it, and we have to find places in that story where we tell the story of where you were powerful because you didn't give up. And where you like pushed through and when nobody else would. That's what we want. We want to put that in there because that's going to give you that. You're going to say, I am powerful because look at that, that, and that. And so Spirit says, like, when we change that story, then we realize, like, actually what so much of like this experience gave us is clarity about what it is to be happy, what it is to be found, and to be able to like translate that, you know, for the world into this creation, this universal love. You know, have this knowledge and this ability to like have this clarity to like make this into what you're trying to put into the world. It's the most valuable gift you can give is this really unfair work of forcing a terrible situation to carry the meaning that will inform like what it really is to be happy for you and for others that like are having a similar kind of, and like for everyone, really, this is universal. This is going to be for everybody. And so your clarity on what it is to be, you know, like fulfilled and happy, like the map that you have gained through this process is like the most valuable thing in the world. You know, your loss is given, you know, your loss has a lot of treasure in it. And I say that, like feeling like really like worried that this is, you know, going to be perceived as making light, but each one of these cups was bought with like tears. I know that, you know, I do know that. And so like, you know, this clarity about that and that this ability to shine the light through that, it's the most powerful thing in the world. And so, you know, so Spirit is saying, you know, I want you to know that about what it is you're trying to create. It's the most powerful thing in the world. And in some ways, like there's a lot here that, you know, being empowered will give you a lot, you know, having that voice and like forging these connections and gaining this balance is going to give you a lot. You have to forgive, the experience. And that's like forgiving life for being unfair. And it's a really hard thing to do. But Spirit is saying, you know, there's a gift of love from the divine in the way of this inspiration that has wings and it's for everybody. And so Spirit's really encouraging you to do this and like really kind of push through this stuff. And so I hope that was helpful. Group number 2, I'm going to end the reading here. It got kind of long, but yeah, there's a lot. And so I hope that was helpful and I'll see you again soon. Okay, for group number 3, those of you that chose the complete plays in one sitting, this is my ambitious group, I think. So I'm going to put this over here and we're going to speed up your shuffle. Okay, so group number 3, let's take a look and see what we have here. We've got with the Avenger in the light attribute, it's like you have mastered this archetype. You know, you've gotten this lesson, and it's the desire to balance the scales of justice, righteousness on behalf of oneself and society. And so this, there's inspiration related to this understanding. And however that wants to find its way out, your inspiration is strong. There's like, it's beautiful, and it's going to appeal. And so like spirit like is saying like, you know, the work you have done in this area of your life, like where there's a lot of wisdom is what it feels like to me. Yeah, a lot of wisdom, like, and the right heart kind of. So this has really informed this process. And so there's a real strength to it. So that's like this is like what's going on. You know, when we look at your project's looking amazing. It's born of some great truth. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm feeling about it. With the, just stop saying so much ums. With the poet here, and the Knight of Cups and the Ten of Pentacles, I could not love more the way that like this understanding and this wisdom, which this is always hard won. Like, you know, this is never an easy process to, you know, find that, like, even see that balance clearly. So that means like you know, like the sides of the scales, right? With the poet here, you know, expresses soul insights in symbolic language. You're able to like carry and translate this, and like it doesn't have to, you know, it's bigger than you, but you're able to like translate the essence perfectly, like in stanzas. It's an amazing gift. And not just stanzas, like it's just this way in which like you can encapsulate so much in an expression of creation. And so with the Ten of Pentacles here and the Knight of Cups, like this is like a gift of love, is like a labor of love. You know, you did the work in some ways. You have this understanding. You know, you've fought the good fight almost. And with the Knight of Cups and the Ten of Pentacles, what you have to offer the world is quite profound. And it's worth something. And Ten of Pentacles is a pretty good, that's having a good foundation. So with the Healer, like I love you, whoever you are, this group. This is beautiful. Avenger, Poet, Healer. I'm in awe, honestly, because, you know, this is a really rare combination. And so right off the bat, in terms of energies, like this is beautiful energy. Ooh. You know, Spirit is saying like there's something so precious that you have to offer the world, and it is worth so much, not just to you, but to everyone. With Healer here, you know, in the light, again, to like become a healer, you really have to, you know, that is a school of hard knocks most of the time. I'm going to read the little blurb. Passion to serve others by repairing the body, mind, and spirit. Ability to help transform pain into healing. You got to like have pain to learn how to transform it. So like there's something really beautiful about this, like mastering this archetype. And so you've done that. You've done this beautiful thing. With the Ten of Wands and the Eight of Wands. Wow, this is interesting. The pace that things are going right now might be like really overwhelming, and there might be this thought of like, I can't do this. I can't handle this. This is like too much. There's something here related to, you know, or it might just be like an intensity of passion you have about this that like stops up the process. Like too many ideas and like not enough like way of like executing. We can like look at that like closer. Or like it's almost like you sit down to try and like convey a message, and the magnitude hits and you get stuck at the magnitude hits. And it's really hard to like break things into like their I don't know, there's a way in which the passion is so intense, or the desire is so intense, that it gets like there's like a frozen kind of a feeling, which is like this lack of balance. And it's weirdly like there's something here that's happening around you that is like tipping something off, or it's like a tipping, like a tipping point, that's in, you know, is actually happening right now, or like about to happen, that you're aware of. that is making this process like turbocharged with like a frenetic energy if I have to get it done and it's too hard. So we have that here because there's an intensity, and the intensity is kind of like making the process feel almost like impossible, right? So we see a blockage here that we need to work through. And we will. And look at this. This is like, I feel this energy. It's horrible. This is like an energy of like really like nervous, freaked out, but like with no release valve. With Gaia here, the frequency of Gaia reminds us that we are infinitely connected to one another, just as we are to our great mother and to the universe that birthed us all. This is like where we take this deep breath in. Because this feeling, you know what I mean? This is infinite. And this is tyranny of the urgent, right? And so we have this like, there's a lot happening with what you're trying to achieve in this, dealing. We're going to look at the blockage. We're going to get through it. So what is it to like connect, and this is sort of part of the message is like for you to feel like that safety net, connected, like freedom of expression, like where it's play to create. And connecting with what you like. So this is like connecting to your creation and like in the creative process, like with a nurturing, loving, like healing poet, avenger combination. And whatever this tyranny of the urgent is that you're like, if I can't do it now, I can't do it ever, whatever that is, we are seeing this as being like a disconnectedness. And so with the Empress, the Ace of Cups, the King of Swords, and the Three of Cups, this is this need to care less. This is the Three of Cups here. And so like, this message is almost like Spirit is saying like, listen, whatever this tyranny of the urgent, you got to do this now. It has to be done in this, but has to be, whatever that is. And it might be true. You might have to meet a deadline, and you're intelligent and like, competent enough to like do it. But in terms of the stress that's happening right here about what it is you're trying to bring into the world, like if, maybe you have to like conjunct this into like something smaller, and like whatever it is that is in the process of becoming, Spirit's saying like, don't include into the pot of ingredients other people's expectations, because it's giving you tension. It's making this process harder than it should be. You can take this into account. These people expect this by a certain time, but you're going to produce, with this not in mind, this not influencing the creation of it. It's like souring what you're trying to create a little bit. And so like, put it on the calendar, know it's there. And then don't look at it again, because to the extent that you can create something authentically that's powerful, and like, even if it's a third of what should be finished, if it's better than like, a crappy something, people recognize that there's like an authenticity and like a power in once you start creating, like the doors to like the creative process and the speed, like everything kind of goes. And so Spirit is saying like, just don't put the ingredients of other people stressing you out into your creativity. See if you can compartmentalize there, which like, this is this Ace of Cups in return. This is interesting because like with the Ace of Cups, and I got this like feeling in my stomach when I said that, with the Ace of Cups in reverse, there's this idea of like, I'm not going to put these expectations in the pot with my creation. This is my creation. I'm making this creation. I'm bringing this to life into the world. I'm not going to put the expectations and like the, and the frenetic tyranny of the urgent of these people into this pot. But there's something here that Spirit is saying is like interesting, is because there's a lack of, I gotta look at this. I can get this wrong if I don't look closely. Yeah, Spirit is saying like, there's a lack of self-love that is not like, it's just, you can't produce from an empty vessel, this is when in the upright, this is a gift of love from the divine, like it, is yours, and it's a renewable resource. Like no one can take it away. It's like, it's the love you have for yourself. It's the love that the divine has for you. When we like unplug from that, because we're like, suddenly these three cups and these three people, they become the gods. they become the divine that, like, you know, that they're punishing, and, you know, and that's not any place to raise a project, or, you know, to raise a condition, you know. So there's condition, creation. Well, that was an interesting slip. Condition, creation, condition. I'm gonna have to, that's interesting. I don't know, nothing's coming with it, but that's, somebody might see the connection. So yeah, so there's this need to sort of like pull this out as ingredients and place it into something that like is like where this gets to live and breathe and have freedom. Yeah, the King of Swords and the Empress. It's almost like you want to protect this creation. And so the Empress is, you know, and usually pregnant in the traditional deck. You know, most decks, often she's pregnant. And the King of Swords, you know, I see this as being like, you know, this is the energy that you guard the creative process with. You're just in warrior mode here, in the sense that you're head over heart, yes, but you're also strategic and like very smart about what you say and what you don't say, like what you share and what you don't share, what you produce, like, you know, like how much you can produce and how much you do produce separate, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot here in the way of like negotiating with whatever this Ten of Wands energy is, so that this beautiful creation can be born healthy. And so I think the Spirit says, like, you know, that's why, that's like connecting into, you know, this energy of abundance, and like that when you have faith in creating like life creations, any kind of creation that like goes into the world and it like breathes, like, you know, inspiration and knowledge, wisdom, all the things that come of what we create. The universe does have a way of supporting us in that. It's a miraculous thing. I've seen it a million times, but this is saying like there has to be like an ounce of faith that you can have this process, that you can give this to yourself, and you can guard it, you know, even with doing as much work as you're paid to do, which is probably half as much work as you're doing. Like there's this interesting balance that needs to be found related to the tyranny of the urgent, and not feeling like you have what it takes to really, like, you don't have enough love in yourself, for yourself, never mind to create something with, like, but there is, as the Spirit's saying, like, there's a way in which I want you to like have a little faith in the universe and allow yourself to like put this in its place with this King of Swords energy, and so that your thing can breathe and grow and become at its own pace, whatever that ends up being, because you're negotiating. But you know, that's what I'm seeing here. We have the Three of Cups, man. This is coming up again over here. So with realization, the energy of realization, I wanted to swing back. No, this got covered. Okay, this got covered by that. So with realization, let me read this and let me get some water. Hold up. This is an interesting thing of like, you know, the energy I'm getting from this pile is like somebody who does not know how unbelievably amazing they are. Like this is kind of blowing my mind. You've got a bottom of the deck energy, Four of Pentacles over here. But like everything, like I can feel like this is just like this need to love yourself and appreciate and like value yourself, right? Because this is the feeling of somebody that doesn't know that they're like a superhero at all. And they are. I can feel it. So with realization, I'm going to read the little blurb. The frequency of realization supports the internal process of becoming aware of our heart-centered truth, as well as the external process of becoming our highest expression in this world. Yeah, this is like, you know, this strength and authenticity. Let me just look at this closely because it's kind of mesmerizing and I just want to focus. Fighting for the creation of this is supporting the birth of our heart-centered truth in terms of our like ability to really grasp like what is so important to us and like why it's worth fighting for and like what that means to fight for it. And because there's kind of a call to do that here with this situation. You have healing to bring to the world, and like whatever this tyrannical urgency Spirit's like, we got to make space for this to come into the world. And there's this realization that comes through. This is like labor, you know, the labor of this process. And that's really coming into contact with like I'm seeing like the electric source, your heart-centered truth that like powers the heavens, basically. Like it's this is the realization, like I'm a superpower. I have superpowers. I'm a superhero. That's what this is. That's like doing this and then having this understanding of yourself as a result of it, and never being scared again like that. Never having to learn this lesson twice. This is like a pruning kind of a process. It's really difficult, but it's part of what Spirit's like. This is part of what's going into the creation and its integrity, and the way that people are going to be able to receive it, and the depth is going to hit with people receiving it. So like this all works together to kind of infuse whatever it is that you're doing with a strength that comes almost of, yeah, it's like sweat. I don't know. I keep seeing like the sweat of your brow, sort of. And that might be kind of frustrating, but what Spirit is saying is like, you don't have to be as strong about this as like, there's this way in which Spirit is trying to say, like, you think there's less than there is. You give so much. This is what I'm hearing. You give so much. And then you're like, I'm exhausted. How could I do it? And the Spirit is saying everybody else on earth gives like a third of what you do. And it's just that you don't know that you don't have to expend as much energy. It's like there's this weird way, and I'm not like lecturing, I don't know, it's just a channel. There's this weird way in which Spirit wants you to like give less to this tyrannical energy of like the other and like the demands of the other. And Spirit says, you know, and often when we think about this, because we have the Three of Cups and the Strength in reverse here, under realization, you know, there's this perception or this understanding that we have to be strong in order to counter that energy. And Spirit's like, no, no, you have to be aware to counter this energy. The strength comes, it's like a muscle that you build in like having the boundaries and the defenses against like this taking over your life, and making it so that you have nothing to create from. And so Spirit is saying that like, you don't have to be like a pillar of strength to begin to like work the muscle of getting the boundaries in place so that this doesn't affect, you know, this is like that, this is definitely that King of Swords protecting the Empress energy. Yeah, and Spirit's saying you don't have to be strong to fight what feels overwhelming to you. You have to be aware. This is I'm led to read the little blurb. It says, loyalty, delivery from those who seek to oppress, and brings victory. And I think that that's, you know, there are situations where we look at it and we're like, I don't have power over this. I'm going to have to like, you know, pay my bills. I do have to go to the job that I hate. There are these tyrannical things that like that are in our lives that take probably way more than they give. And Spirit is saying like, there's this sense that like, you can look at that stuff and be like, oh man, you know, like I can't win. I can't win. The odds are stacked against me. Like I'm lost before I even start. And Spirit is saying there's this idea that like, you have to be strong in order to really put this in its place. And Spirit says, no, it's incremental sometimes, but like little by little, you know, to the extent that you can take back time within that time or within your time, like that, to the extent that you can work with whatever this unrelenting kind of like set of demands ends up being, you want to like form a healthy detachment so that the energy suck isn't happening, or you want to like, you know, maneuver things so that you have more time to like breathe through, you know, however it works. You know, it's going to be different for everybody, but there's a realization about what it means to protect this Empress energy, protect what's growing within you and what's meant to be birthed through you by not giving so much to others and their demands. That's what this is over here. It's like, that's kind of repeating the same thing because we have the same set of cards. I mean, we have Three of Cups and we have Three of Cups. Base, you know, so this is all a Strength and Ace of Cups similar. But with the allowance here, this is where it gets kind of interesting. Because there's more to it than that. Yeah, it's more to it than sort of like the practical stuff. Part of it, is like not letting the burnout like drain you, or like not getting, like really finding a way to work with that burnout is basically what all of those sentences put together, like that would have, that's kind of what it was. But with allowance here and the Three of Wands in reverse and the Magician in reverse, let's take a look at what this is, because we have directions here. So I want to read the blurb. The frequency of allowance invites us to be open to whatever comes our way, without judgment, without opinion, without fear, and without resistance. When we allow, the universe becomes our partner in the wondrous dance of existence and then expansion. This like spirit is showing me this joke. I guess it's not really a joke, but is it a joke? Yeah, it's some kind of a... So the way that it goes is there's somebody who like fell into a ditch. Or like, no, this is it. Sorry, I'm like seeing it differently. Somebody like falls off a cliff and they're hanging on a branch. And they're like screaming for help. No, they're not. Let's scratch all of this. This is going to take me forever to explain, but it's like so perfectly this thing. The person is hanging off the cliff and they're praying. God, please deliver me. Please pick me up off of this cliff. I need to be saved from the... I'm on a cliff. I need help. I need to be saved. And so this person's praying and like a helicopter comes by and they're like, do you need help? And he's like, I'm praying and I have faith that God is going to come and save me from this cliff. And then, somebody walks by and they're like, do you need a rope? And the person's like, I'm praying and God is going to come and help me from this cliff. I'm holding on to this branch because I have faith that I will be saved. And then, what else? Somebody else comes by and it's like the same speech over and over again. God's going to deliver me or whatever. And so what I'm being shown about that in relation to allowance, I know that was like a huge spiel. What I'm being shown about that in relation to allowance is, when that person got to heaven and it was like, God, I prayed, I said, well, why didn't you deliver? Why didn't you come? And God's like, I sent a helicopter. I sent somebody with a rope. I sent somebody else you didn't even like look up. So there's this way in which Spirit is saying, like, I understand that it does seem like there are things that you can't overcome related to what you want to be in the world and how you want to be in the world and how you want to create in the world. And there's this feeling of like, of compromise that you're making where you're like, yeah, the Spirit is saying it's just about reevaluating and putting this in the priority seat that it deserves to be in. Against all odds, because some of the most amazing things are created against all odds. And that's kind of what Spirit is saying about this realization here, is something that's created against the odds in this beautiful way. It's the diamond, and with allowance, Spirit is saying, like, you start to do this and I will send things, and you may not know that I'm sending the thing. The job that you have that takes too much might like fire you. Oh my God, no, don't even say it. But that might lead to a job that doesn't take too much, because it's like this way in which, like, where's deliverance going to come from? Well, it's going to come from after the thing that requires change, either by like necessity or like by imposition. And so Spirit is saying, like, what allowance is actually coming back to this, Gaia sort of energy that says, like, the universe is going to provide somehow. How do I know that? Because I've gone without, but I've never lacked the ability to survive. I've come close, to not being able to, but I've always found a way. And so, like, there's something to be said about having faith in who you have been for yourself in the past, and knowing who that person is going to be, like, as you go through this healing process, like, and look back. And so Spirit is saying, allowance is kind of having faith that, like, if this is going to cut off your ability to create, and to like deprive the world of this avenger, poet, healer energy, this empress, which is bringing forth this like realization related to what you have to offer the world. If this is going to cut that off, there needs to be a little bit of allowance that you're going to do the best you can, but this is a priority. And the universe is going to step up. And so, and it calls for faith, but it also calls for you, while having faith, to be scanning your environment for ways in which, like, the answer is there that you might not expect it, or, that the challenge presents itself and, like, you win the battle because there's something that you can't see that comes about. So there is a need for a, like, cultivating that faith. Yeah, and it's helpful, you know, in terms of like what it means to create this, because with the Three of Wands and the Magician, they're both in reverse, and you know, whatever, I always read those kind of like nuance, but I'm seeing this as being, Spirit is saying, like, you know, you're always waiting for, like, you know, what you put out there to come back, you know, to have what you deserve in the way of, like, you know, energy and like creativity, all the stuff. Like you deserve this, you are Avenger, poet, healer. You deserve to have your voice is needed, and you need the platform. And so you're going to be longing for it, and you're going to be longing for, to be, you know, compensated for life, you know, like for what, you know, for what it is that you have like done to create from the space, and what that creation has to offer. And so you have what it takes with the Magician. And with the Three of Wands here, like there's a way in which Spirit is like, there's a reception for you stepping out with a level of faith. And a level of faith does not mean self-destructive or saboteur. Like a level of faith means allowing the universe to surprise you when you put yourself first. And with the Three of Wands here, you know, Spirit saying the reward, you know, for doing that is like understanding that you do have everything you need to get what you deserve in life. You know, there's this feeling of being lost here, and it's a feeling of being lost and burdened. And so Spirit is saying, like, you know, why isn't the project? Why isn't my creativity? Like, why aren't things flowing? Because if you've given up, like, on your ability to have what it is that you want in the way of a creative, something that you want to create and give to the world, if you've given up on it, there's this longing, and that's going to make it hard for you to find the right direction in terms of what you desire. Because what you desire is actually the thing you gave up on, and so you're not going to find it somewhere else. Like, that's this weird trick of the world and life, you know, that kind of happens. And so Spirit is saying, you know, the Magician is like your ability to do this, your talent, you know, your birthright, like what you came here to, like, in your highest good, to produce and to create. And the Three of Wands is that you're you know, you put the effort out there, and you're meant to profit from what it is that you've lived through and the voice that you have. The feeling of being lost, the Spirit is saying, like, you know, that has a lot to do with like desires that we've, you know, dreams we've let die, or like dreams we've kind of just felt like you could get the ball rolling, you know, a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, but it's never the priority. And for those like resonating with this, and again, it's not gonna be for everybody, but you know, for those resonating with this, you know, you have, like, what does it mean for you to like look at yourself and be like, I'm an Avenger, you know, I fought for balance and justice and righteousness, and I saw the world for what it was. I'm a poet. I'm able to, you know, alchemize like language to express a world of information in just a few lines. You know, I'm a healer. Like, that communication heals people. Like, you know, to really look at what you are and say, like, and so I have to prioritize that. It's really important. And that's like a proper valuing of yourself. This influence that says, well, you know, good luck with that. I work, you know, 70 hours a week. Yeah. And there's a negotiation that has to happen here. And part of this, you know, allowance is, you know, bringing Spirit into it, you know, operating with the understanding that whatever happens when you're putting this priority, when you're putting yourself first, you know, there's an allowance that is required with this negotiation, where you might have to put yourself first to the tune of what seems like losses. But what's the alternative? If you're miserable not putting yourself first, and you put yourself first, and then you find yourself to be like not, you know, feeling like a winner, because, you know, sometimes that does happen, are you worse off, or are you kind of better off? You're kind of better off. And so Spirit says, like, that's the faith. And that's the ingredient that is going to really infuse your creativity and begin to like turn that faucet of creativity on and allow you to create from this place of abundance with this 10 of Pentacles. Your creation, what you want to create, is inspired, and it's a Queen of Wands. It's an Ace of Wands. That's fire. You know, under the poet, we have 10 of Pentacles and the Knight of Cups. This is a gift of love that is so valuable. There are no words. let's try, like, so Spirit's saying, like, let's value this correctly. And when we value this correctly, we can then value that correctly against this and make the right decisions of how to, like, bring this into the world. And even if there might be cost, you know, I have to allow for the fact that when I take these risks, or when I, you know, shift my energy in these ways, there might be cost. But saying there might be cost is also like opening the door and allowing for the change that can produce the outcome wherein, like, you get what you're meant to do. You know, you're really able to create what you're meant to create, and it's 10 of Pentacles, you're fine. So it's a faith in yourself too. So there's this way in which Spirit is saying, like, you know, what we're looking at here and how to, like, unblock you creatively is know your worth. And that's half the battle. And the other half of the battle is, you know, that daily fight of how do I put myself first when there's so much terrorizing energy around me that is demanding my, you know, time. That's kind of like fighting the dragon, you know, and it's this process that produces this beautiful realization. So there's an alchemy at work here. And so, you know, Spirit wants to encourage you with that. But I want to just end on a note of, where's that? Oh, here it is. I want to end on a note of advice from Spirit with all this. Wow, this went long. All of these went long, actually. Let's end on a note of advice from Spirit on these. Your idea is fire, and it's going to pay off, but there's this fight you have to have with, you know, the tyrannical dragon of whatever these demands are. You know, Spirit says, take the leap of faith. see the bigger picture. Bring your ideas to life. I mean, that's it, right? Bottom of the deck is tend to the small things, though, and like that's what this negotiation with your time and your priorities really is. You know, it's having to, like, pick at things and, like, you know, force new habits and work with, like, creating boundaries. This is tiresome, but when you value what you have to offer properly, you realize it's all worth it, all of it. So definitely, Spirit's advice is take the leap of faith, see the big picture, and bring your ideas to life. So group number 3, I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you again soon.